that's the difference between a selling and just being naturally persuasive. You know what I mean? Like if you're selling something, you're trying to convince someone of the value of something, right? But if you understand what someone's criteria and values are, you understand where they're what they want, try to figure out what their goals are, and you can help them with those goals and you can speak to how you can help them with their goals. It's now you're just it's just a no-brainer, right? It's like, well, why wouldn't you work with me or do whatever, right? But if you're trying to like convince them, not so much. It's a much harder thing to do, right? So understanding how other people think helps in winning support. Figuring out what their criteria and values are. That's key. And the communication isn't just about persuasion, but empathy, knowing how to present ideas in ways that resonates with others. That's also from Finance Traits of Successful People. That's a big key with just, in your relationship. That's one of the things that, I talk about in psychology paradigm is having that tactical empathy, understanding where your wife's coming from. That's where the Luca model of communication is effective. It's how you can lead the interaction, communicate with your wife or your girlfriend from a position of leadership. And you're not getting so lost in your emotions. The big problem with people when they're trying to communicate is they're really just trying to think of the next thing they're going to say. They're not even listening to the other person. You know what I mean? You're just trying to get your point across. Where if you don't do that, you take a step back and try to understand where the other person's coming from. Once they feel heard and understood, that's when you could come up with an action plan that they'll be okay with. Do you understand? That's where the Luca model of communication is very effective for men, right? Paul, what's the Luca model of communication? That's listen, understand, clarity, action. I learned that from Paul Benjamin as well. Paul Benjamin, shout out to Paul. He's a wealth of knowledge. If you guys don't subscribe to his channel, definitely subscribe to Apex Mindset on YouTube. Genius. Let's see here. Where are we at here? The next concept is resilience through failure and learning from setbacks. So this one's from Finance Traits of Successful People I've Met. Failure is a part of success. Many successful people experience setbacks and were even ridiculed in their youth, but used that as their motivation. It's one of those things that I like to refer to a lot as there's no such thing as winning and losing. It's just winning and learning, right? If you have that growth mindset that setbacks are a learning opportunity for you not to make those same mistakes and move forward, you're going to do much better in life. It's kind of like Thomas Edison when he did 10,000 attempts to make the light bulb, right? And someone's like, well, man, weren't you discouraged when you tried 10,000 times and they didn't work? And he goes, no, I just learned 10,000 different ways of how not to do it. That's a totally different mindset, right? They didn't avoid mistakes at all costs, but instead focused on realizing their vision, learning, and adapting as they went, right? If you're constantly risk averse and you don't take any risks, you really don't get any that much reward. Have you ever heard the expression, nothing ventured, nothing gained, or the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward, that kind of thing? If you are afraid to take any kind of risks at all, like you just stay stagnant. You never move. I had over the weekend at my day job, we did our annual DR test, and our database administrator on there, who for years he and I butt heads so much because he is such a risk averse person. It drives me nuts. And I'm more of a cowboy. I'm like, I don't care. Let's try it. Let's take down the network. Let's I don't care. Let's fix this. And he just goes into the meeting and he's like, I'm just so nervous right now. Like I'm so nervous. And it's like, bro, chill. It's going to be fine. Like, we're going to be fine. We do this every year. Like, relax. Like, what are you so afraid of? Are you not confident in how you have your database system set up? Don't be a pussy, dude. Okay. I'm not worried about it. If we don't pass the DR test, that's fine. We're going to learn from our mistakes from it and we can do better next time, right? Like, it's relax. It will be okay. They didn't avoid mistakes at all costs, but instead focused on realizing their vision, learning, and adapting as they went. Their resilience was fueled by a desire to prove something, whether to themselves or to the world. Man, have you ever done that? Have you ever went so hard just to prove something to yourself? I ran a marathon a couple of years ago. I was like, I've never ran a marathon, never wanted to run a marathon in my life, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And one of the reasons why was because I was in a runners group. I was in a local runners group and I'm out running, and one of the guys that was the founders of the group, he goes, "So Paul, what's the longest race you've ran?" And I go, "Oh, I've ran a 10K." And he goes, "Why haven't you ever ran farther than that?" I never thought about it before. It was like, because I never wanted to, right? And I was like, man, why haven't I? So I wanted to prove to myself that I could. So I trained for a marathon a couple of years ago and spent the whole year training for it. Decided I don't like doing it, but I at least did it. They say that 1% of the world's population can say that they've ran a marathon. I'm in that club. But yeah, but wanted to prove something to myself. So sometimes that's fun to do. All right, the next concept is developing independence from societal and female approval. So this one's from How to Get a Pook to Shut Up. So avoid relying on validation from women or societal roles, as these external influences can create dependence and vulnerability. Vulnerability is a bad word in this space. You know, they always talk about it in the blue pill space and psychology, how you need to be more vulnerable, and women think they want men to be more vulnerable, but they really don't. It gives them the ick. You could be intimate with a woman, but being vulnerable is not a good idea. But you gotta let go of that validation from women. You know, you've got to be self-validating. We talked about that already. True independence means developing an identity and life path that isn't contingent on romantic relationships or societal expectations. So this is from his post on marriage. True independence means developing an identity and life path that isn't contingent on romantic relationships or societal expectations. You know, if you put your identity into your relationships, that's where a lot of men crack, right? That's where a lot of men get zeroed out. When they are married and they've been married for like 15, 20, 30 years, and then the wives slap the wife goggles off their face by either cheating or handing them divorce papers. They put so much mental identity into that relationship that they just don't know how to move forward. They don't feel like they can have a purpose in life, and they'll unalive themselves. So many guys unalive themselves. That's why the red pill is so beneficial to men, because it really shines the light on the reality of intersexual dynamics so that men don't do that. Right? Intersexual dynamics, understanding how to use hypergamy to your advantage, all that kind of stuff helps men navigate relationships in a more healthy way that's beneficial to everybody involved, really. But you got to let go of that validation from women and societal roles and not put so much emphasis on your value based on your relationship status. You know who does that? Women. That's naturally ingrained in them to put value in their relationship status, because their status in society is often based on their relationship status. That's why women who are unmarried, you know, in their 30s are looked down upon, you know, and women are like, they start having a midlife crisis when they get into turn 30, because they haven't gotten married yet and their eggs are drying up. And so they end up going through that epiphany phase and realizing, oh, I can't be a slooty sloot anymore, and I got to start acting like a wholesome pretender now. It's because society judges them so harshly based on their relationship status. Men, not so much. So if you're putting all that kind of emphasis and emotional attachment and validation to your relationship status, you got to let that go. You don't need that. You're a man. It's women's job to lock you down. It's not your job to lock them down and try to chase relationships, right? And then true independence means developing an identity and life path that isn't contingent on romantic relationships. Okay, we said that one already. Strengthen personal resilience by setting firm boundaries and not allowing emotional sway from external opinions or trends. So that's on women initiating dates. Strengthen personal resilience by setting firm boundaries and not allowing emotional sway from external opinions or trends. That's where frame comes in, right? Right? Having a good, strong frame won't allow you to be emotionally swayed from external opinions or trends. You won't get into all these fights on the internet based on stupid things that people say. You'll have stronger personal resilience, and you'll be able to set firm boundaries with people, right? All that comes when you develop a strong mental frame. The next concept is building a solid sense of purpose beyond material wealth. So, from Finance Traits of Successful People I've met, Puck talks about time is more valuable than money. Successful individuals prioritize time over wealth, even when financially secure. That's one thing too. You'll find that successful, wealthy people do is they stop trading time for money. Right? Well, how do you do that? Most people, a vast majority of people, work a 9-to-5 job. They're working hourly, and or their salary, but they're still working 9 to 5. They're trading their time away for money.
New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Subscribe now.